Can things get worse? Oh yeah. If you ever wonder if things can get worse, ask yourself that question. Can things possibly get worse? And then grab something and hold on because they're about to get worse, because things can always get worse. But if things can get worse, that tells you something, which is that things change. And if things change, there's also an opportunity for things to get better. You just have to be here to see it get better. And then it just takes a little, sometimes you're going to find that like in the darkest places, man, even just a little bit of light shines so fucking bright that it can blind you. It gives you a belief that something can shoot through the dark and save you, to guide you out of that dark place. All you need is a little bit of a ray, man. Why are you miserable? Why do you lack meaning? It's not because you lack money. It's not because you lack status. It's not because you lack family. It's not because you lack any of those things, but you're lacking something else, which is meaning and purpose. All those external things are taken care of. You have all of the means, but you have no meaning. Can you be wealthy and have meaning? Yes. Can you be poor and have meaning? Yes. Which is better? To be wealthy and have meaning. Of course. But the first things first. Have that meaning. Have that purpose. If the things I'm saying are so obvious, it should be easy to point out what's wrong with them. And if it's not so obvious, then that should probably give us pause then. Because, like I'm saying, we go through school and we kind of just presume that if we go through school, it makes us wiser or it makes us smarter. And the truth is that it's probably a lot like drugs and alcohol. Depends if you use them properly. Now, are there proper ways to use drugs? Maybe not, because, yeah, they mess with your mind. Well, what's so wrong about that? Well, what's wrong with it is that it separates you from reality. When you drop acid, it causes you to hallucinate. It's a psychedelic. It causes you to see things that aren't there. And when you see things that aren't there, you're not living in reality. You're living in something completely separate and distinct from reality. So I guess I ask the question, where is it that you want to be successful? Do you want to be successful in reality? Or do you want to be successful in something that's not real? And I was just talking to a class, for example, last period. I was talking to a student last period about that. If your answer is, I want to be successful in reality, then I guess I would ask that question. Well, then why do we spend so much time on the things that divorce us from reality? Like, for example, one of my classes last year was talking about social media influencers and how they make so much money and they're so famous. And I just think like, yeah, but think about how much work goes into that. It really is a lot of work. Right now, if I were to give you an essay and say, here, write this essay. About what? I don't know. You tell me. Make it interesting, though. It's got to capture my attention. Go for it. I wonder how many of us would even go like, what the hell do I write about? How many of us would even start? And if we did start and we did write it, would it be interesting? And if I come in again tomorrow and say, great, do another one, and then another one, and another, and every day you've got to come up with something interesting to say, something interesting to write about. If you're not ready to do that, then of course you're not ready to be a social media influencer, because think about how much work it is to every day have to come up with something interesting, something that tops yesterday, something that is not just acting in front of a camera, it's also putting together these videos and editing them, having something to say, writing the script of what you're going to say, and constantly that is your life. And you can't take a day off, because if you take a day off, the algorithm forgets you. That's your life. So what do you have to do? You have to create something that's separate from reality. You have to create something that people want to see because it's different from how they actually live. Because if you want to see your own life, you would just go about your own life. Instead, though, you want to see something that's different from your actual real life. And so you have to come up, so it's completely imaginary. And then if we really think about it, we recognize that. And then we can see how destructive it is, because when is it that you're scrolling through these videos? Is it when you're on a roller coaster at Disneyland? Is it when you're out in the ocean surfing? Is it while you're in the middle of skydiving? In other words, are you watching these things when you're out there living your best life? Of course not. You're out there, you're watching these things when you're bored, when you have nothing else going on, when you're just sitting there and just nothing else to do. So you're seeing the most exciting, artificially exciting moments of some people's lives when you're living the most bored part of your life. And we don't think that that has an influence on how we see the world. Like, you have to recognize that that completely distorts your view of reality. We get to thinking like, my life is so boring, but my God, their life is so exciting. No, what you're seeing is, I mean, you'll see them be like, I'm on my way to Paris, and then they fast forward over them walking through the airport. It's like all, super speed. And then they cut in there at the Eiffel Tower. Wouldn't it be funny if you actually had to watch it in real time? Booking their airline tickets, going through security, having to go through unloading their bag, taking off their shoes, going through the body scanner, walking through, waiting an hour for the plane to land and to take off. Their life wouldn't seem so exciting, except that we compare the bottom of our life to the peaks of their life. That's not to say their lives aren't interesting. Of course they are. But they're interesting with fast-forwarding over all the mundane parts of life. We all share those same mundane parts of our lives. And yet we recognize, hopefully, that it's artificial, that the peaks of their life, at where they are, hopefully those will be the peaks of our life. Hopefully we'll do those same kinds of things. But as of right now, it's artificial. It's fake. And yet we compare the bottoms of our lives to the peak fictions of other people's lives. Now, what are they experiencing while they're there? Joy, excitement, thrilling, even if they're really not. Have you ever seen those videos of some of these folks where they're like, there's like the behind the scenes thing, they're getting ready to film it, and the person's like, I saw one where a person was doing a paint out in a community, and she was just like going off on the person who was supposed to be recording it. And she's just like, get the angle. What the hell is wrong with, that's not the angle. Come on. And then it's somebody over here who's recording her talk like that. And then finally she's like, okay, go. And she's like panning out. She's like, oh my God, we're doing such good for the community. And she's all excited and everything. I don't know. I wonder if that affects you also, to realize that at some point, yeah, you get to be famous and you get to make some money, but you realize yourself that you're not real. It's a fiction. Although I don't know if that's any different from any other kind of an actor or not. But the point is, who cares about them? It's the effect that it has on our lives, because the joy that they're pretending to experience, or maybe even experiencing for real, at their life, is the darkest part of ours, because that's when we're encountering it. When we're bored, when we feel like our life isn't what we want it to be. Well, no shit. Why would our lives be what we want them to be? Because what are we doing while they're out there living their best lives? We're consuming their best lives. We're not living the best life. Because you're going to find that there's going to be a direct correlation between how much time we spend on entertainment and being entertained and being fed entertainment. Because what's the purpose of entertainment, by the way? It's to distract us from our lives. When you're on a roller coaster, you're not trying to be distracted from the experience of the roller coaster. When you're in love, you're not trying to be distracted from the experience of being in love. You're trying to indulge in that moment. It's only in the moments that we don't want to be here, we don't want to be part of, that we indulge in entertainment. And you're going to find that the more and more and more and more and more of your life that you fill with entertainment, the less and less and less of your life that you're actually getting to live. And so we're seeking a joy through entertainment, but understand that you're seeking a joy because it's a distraction from what you presently are. And that is going to lead to a life of absolute quiet desperation. These are the people you see walking around sometimes who look like they envy the dead, because they're just like, it's like, what are you doing at the mall at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? Shopping for linens, can't wait to get new bedding. It's like, that's your life? That's what it is? And then you see people walking in the mall and they're just scrolling through things because they're trying to be distracted from the distraction even. But the more time you spend on that distraction, think about how much time a day you spend on that distraction instead of 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, whatever, you put that into building the life that you actually want to live. What could you do with an extra 5 hours of your life? Every day. Not towards the things anybody else tells you that you should be building towards, the things that you yourself decide you should be building towards. And yeah, you can have all kinds of excuses. Oh, I can't do it because I don't have the money right now. Oh, so what are you going to do? You think, is scrolling through all this stuff going to give you the money to do the things you want to do? maybe getting the experience to get the money to do those things. And besides that, do you really believe that the excitements of your life is based on the amount in your bank account? Money does help. This is true. People who say money doesn't matter, they either make a lot of it or they make none of it. Everybody else in the middle knows that money matters to a degree. Of course, you have to have some of it to do some of those things. But man, if that's what you think if that's what you're basing your hope for experience on, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because here's something that we also don't talk about. Suicide is a disease of two different types of people: the very young and the very wealthy. Why do wealthy people kill themselves so often? Almost in proportion to young people. Young people commit suicide because of a lack of perspective. Things suck right now, they're probably always going to suck. And so this happens. Suicide is not because you're sad. Suicide comes from hopelessness. You feel like things are never going to get better. So young people are wrong by thinking things are never going to get better. Can things get worse? Oh yeah. If you ever wonder if things can get worse, ask yourself that question. Can things possibly get worse? And then grab something and hold on, because they're about to get worse, because things can always get worse. But if things can get worse, that tells you something, which is that things change. And if things change, there's also an opportunity for things to get better. You just have to be here to see it get better. And then it just takes a little. Sometimes you're going to find that, like in the darkest places, man, even just a little bit of light shines so fucking bright that it can blind you. It gives you a belief that something can shoot through the dark and save you, to guide you out of that dark place. All you need is a little bit of a ray, man. But older, wealthier people, think about that. All those excuses are gone. Why are you miserable? Why do you lack meaning? It's not because you lack money. It's not because you lack status. It's not because you lack family. It's not because you lack any of those things, but you're lacking something else, which is meaning and purpose. All those external things are taken care of. You have all of the means, but you have no meaning. Can you be wealthy and have meaning? Yes. Can you be poor and have meaning? Yes. Which is better? To be wealthy and have meaning. Of course. But the first things first. Have that meaning. Have that purpose. Because without that, whatever joy that you're going to be encountering, it can be a reminder of the darkest parts. Yeah. Life is a tragedy full of joy. True. And the joy is the darkest part. Why? Well, if you're a pessimist, it can remind you like, wow, I'm happy right now. But man, it's a reminder when you're in those dark times about how happy you used to be. Why is it, well, I mean, oftentimes, man, joy and happiness, oftentimes, they are a memory. And all of us are kings and queens in exile. We remember a happier time, a better time. But what's funny is that we almost never appreciate the happy and the joyful time at the moment. I was talking to somebody recently, and they were saying that when they were in high school, they see pictures of themselves back when they were in high school, and they say, man, when I was in high school, I thought I was like so ugly and fat and had bad complexion, and I felt horrible about myself. And then she said, when I was 25, I looked back at pictures of myself when I was 15, and I was like, I wasn't that. I was so much better off than I realized. But now she said, I was 25, and I'm fatter than I was, I'm uglier than I was, and my life isn't going the way I want it to be. You know, she was just despairing at that point. She wished that she had seen at 15 what she saw at 25. The funny thing is that she was actually older. When she was 35, she said she looked back at herself when she was 25 and remembering those thoughts that she had, and said, I wish that I had seen it at 35, what I really had when I was 25. But I missed it because I was comparing myself to everybody else who seemed to have it together. Does anybody in here have all their shit together? Anybody in here pretend like you do? Anybody in here, your friends think that you do because you can give off that impression, but you really don't, man. That's pretty much everybody, just about, you know. But the thing is, I was talking to her when she was 45. And she was saying that she was remembering at 45, she was thinking back to when she was 35, judging herself from 25 with that view of herself when she was 15. She was always playing catch up, and she never saw the value of what she had. It was interesting. She's pretty well off. She knew the price of everything, but the value of nothing. She's one of those kinds of people. So she's always remembering about what joy was like, because it was always like, man, I remembered when I was happy. I remembered when I was happy. I remember when I was happy. But at the time, they weren't happy. She wasn't happy anyway. So that's also the scary part about that little bit of light that can shine in the dark room. Because once it's gone, we find ourselves just as lost as before. So there's your choice. Do you believe that the light can come back? Next time the light comes back, here's a better question. What will you do with the light? What will you do with the joy when it comes back? Are you going to hold on to it and then use that as a point of hope to say, wow, this is like my Eiffel Tower moment? Meaning that, just like from before, we see the highlights of people's lives and think that their whole life is like that. Understand that the same way with your life and everybody else's life, yeah, you have those highlights of those great things that you go through. You also have the lowlights of the things that you go through, just like everybody else. The power in it, the power in it is to recognize that your life is not just those highlights, but making the most of those in-between moments, the mundane. What do you do when you're walking to school? Do you stare at the ground? Do you go into autopilot? You ever sing when you're walking to school? You ever dance in the shower? Careful, slippery. In other words, do you make the most of those mundane moments that it makes up so much of life? Or are you living your life hoping for the next highlight or remembering the last one? Because everyone's going to have their highlights, everyone's going to have their lowlights. It's what you make of those, of the things that you have to make of it. You don't have to make the most of a highlight. You can. But make the most of those in-between moments. It elevates the whole value of your life, man. So, by that, the darkness isn't so dark. The lights are enjoyed, but they're also reminders that there's hope for more light in the future. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Wednesday.